Just a couple bad weather fans representing New York, talking all things sports. Man, what could go wrong? We got Alex, who's a fan of the Knicks, and Mike of the Nets. The yin-yang of the tri-state, place your bets on the Yankees, Giants, Mets, or Jets. Yeah, you should listen if it's sparking your interest. If you made a vow to your team, don't break it. Bad weather fans is the relation.
That's right, this is Bad Weather Fans, episode number 129. Mike Biseglia, Alex Benezowitz, and we'll be joined shortly by Richard Jefferson, former New Jersey Net, NBA champion with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and now an ESPN analyst. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk to Richard Jefferson, you know, my biggest rival on Twitter and every Knicks fan's biggest rival on Twitter. But he's actually a really funny and good guy. But it's funny because he is probably the most hated Nets player of all time by Knicks fans.
That's awesome. I love that. That makes me smile when you instantly say that. And for everybody listening, you can find this podcast on all platforms. Make sure you go ahead and download. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening, you can find us on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe there. Just type in Bad Weather Fans. And most importantly as well, talking to you Apple listeners out there, you can now follow Bad Weather Fans if you are a Apple person, if that's how you get your podcast. So go ahead and follow Bad Weather Fans. We will talk to Richard Jefferson in a matter of moments, but first, 20% off. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Dolan J. Trump merch, because he is now a proud sponsor of Bad Weather Fans.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. We have a sponsor. No, I'm just kidding. So over the past 4 years, President Dolan J. Trump has delivered for Knicks fans like never before, repealing the triangle, building our depleted defense, and constructing the league's biggest salary cap space force. And now here's your chance to show your support for the MKGA movement with the official Dolan J. Trump line of merchandise. Visit dolanjtrump.com now for the hottest t-shirts and more designed personally by your favorite president, Dolan J. Trump. Plus, get 20% off, like Mike said, your order when you use the promo code BWF for Bad Weather Fans. That's BWF, 20% off at dolanjtrump.com now and help make the Knicks great again.
And we'll be in future episodes. We'll be rocking some of that Dolan J. Trump merch. I know I just got a cool Mets looking thing from Vogelback. The big boy with the donuts. So I'm excited to rock that in the next couple episodes. Love Dolan J. Trump, one of the best people you'll ever meet. Very funny on Twitter. You happy? He paid me.
At Dolan_J_Trump. Yes, on Twitter.
All right. Enough of Dolan J. Trump.
Yes.
We sat down with Richard Jefferson. Knick fans, you'll enjoy this. Net fans, you'll enjoy this too. So here's our conversation with Richard Jefferson. All right, and as promised here on Bad Weather Fans, NBA champion with the Cleveland Cavaliers and former New Jersey Net, Richard Jefferson. RJ, thanks for coming on Bad Weather Fans. How you doing?
I am great. Thanks for having me, guys.
I know you're so excited to be here because your best friend in the whole world, Alex B. at Knicks Central, is here, who I've learned to love in real life, but on Twitter, I don't like him. It's a weird experience for me to go from like, I actually like you as a human being, but on Twitter, you get on my nerves. So it's welcome to the Knicks Central experience in real life.
Oh, well, you know what? It's, you know, we've had conversations before. And, you know, the funny thing is that I get it. I truly, truly understand. If you have to walk around all day as a Knicks fan, like there's got to be a place you have to unleash it. You got to unleash it someplace. And like, you know, Twitter is that outlet for a lot of people.
Yeah. Defend the shield. You know, you got to defend the shield.
Yeah. How's that working out for you?
Not so great, man.
Just check it.
It's been better, but not so great. Okay. Last year wasn't so great.
And not as great for me, Net fan, since I was a little kid. Saw you playing at Continental, running up and down. One of my favorite plays was kid to Kenyon off the backboard dunk. Jeff Van Gundy like ripped up the playbook because like we're fucked.
Yeah,
that was one of my favorite plays ever. I'd love to reminisce on that, but right now the Nets not as much fun. Why do you think Kevin Durant hates the Nets now?
I don't think it is a hate to the Nets. I think this was like all the things that could go wrong have gone wrong. with them. Obviously it wasn't an NBA mandate that kept Kyrie out. It was a New York City one. And you've seen that there's lots of other players that are not vaccinated. There's different players on the Celtics, different players on Philly. So like Kyrie wasn't the only person. He was just one of the only people that were put in a position of being forced to do it. Shoot, Andrew Wiggins was close. And this dude went on to have like a damn near finals MVP season. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think everything that went wrong. And then I think just ultimately with the amount of adjustments that a younger coach, and when I mean younger, I mean a guy that's still, learning that space. I think that it's a lot. And I just think, where Kevin is right now, and I don't know him personally, I just think that, he looks at, what he wanted to build and he just doesn't, right now, that's just not the direction that he feels like he wants to be in. And it's when I say it's bad, I mean, like neither side's winning this, right? If he decides not to like, delay going to camp or something like that, no one wins. The team doesn't win if they try and hold him out or handle it in a manner of like, oh, well, we're just going to bring him here. He's under contract. And you're just like, that's not going to bode well long term when you're trying to get free agents in the future. So it's a delicate balance.
Yeah, life doesn't work like that. It's not a video game. Life doesn't work on paper. These are people. You can't just be like, show up, you're on a contract. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And speaking of other people like that, as Kyrie, he kind of shopped himself, didn't find the right situation, and opted in. What do you think happens with him coming this season?
Man, what's so crazy is that the Nets, there has probably not been a 3-year stretch that like the Nets have had. They went from like lovable, like we made it to the postseason, a few years ago with D'Angelo Russell as an all-star. He had a bit of a resurgence, to having Kyrie, KD, and James Harden and LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin all on the same floor 2 years later. Right? Like that's just mind-blowing. And it looks like it's all going back to the way it was before. Even with like Kyrie, I think what they could possibly get for Kyrie. I think the market is small for him, especially because there's teams that know that Kyrie, if he don't want to go there and play, and you don't want to give up assets for a guy like Kyrie because he can be a free agent. So it's not like you're going to guarantee, like if you give up something, like he could just leave right after. So that situation is complicated. But again, like the Brooklyn Nets, the best thing that ever happened to the Brooklyn Nets, and is that KD signed that extension last summer. That was the best thing that ever happened to them, because that pretty much set them up to be like, hey, regardless of what's going to happen, we're going to be fine.
Yeah, it's wild too, signing that 4-year deal, coming back, and as a Net fan, so excited and so like fired up. And I don't know, I don't have a problem. I guess I don't have a problem with somebody saying like, I want to bolt. He signed a 4-year contract and he wants to get out of there. Like I'm personally depressed because he's one of the top 15 players of all time. And to me, I'm like, this is sad. Like I want to see a championship, but I don't really, from like a personal business level, I weirdly can't get upset with someone that's like, I don't like it here anymore. I've earned this right because I'm that good that I can now get out of here and force my hand. I actually don't have a problem with that.
Well, and some people some people, I understand. You don't want every player. Now, look, if a top tier player like of his caliber, or James Harden, or some of these guys, Ben Simmons, if you're a top 20 player, it doesn't matter what sport. Like Juan Soto, is that his name?
Yeah.
Is that his name? He just turned down $400 and something million, right? Like that's
12 years, 15 years, something.
That's not something that everybody has to deal with. But if it was me, well, bitch, it will never be you. So like, so I say that to say that there's a few players that can put themselves in this position. You don't hear a lot of mid-level exception guys. You don't hear a lot of minimum salary guys. You don't hear a lot of like, fringe below all-star guys saying, I want out. No, you hear top tier players that feel like if they're going to be the focal point of something, they want to be the focal point of a situation that they want to be in. And look, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. It's also crazy. Do you think that there really was a lot of internal, I don't know how to say this, like internal, like fighting between Kyrie, Durant, and the organization to the point where they got here, or do you think that's a little overblown?
I think I think both of their personalities, from a standpoint of, I think they both have very, they're both like very unique personalities. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, it just like their personalities are not like, they're just they're very unique individuals. And so I think for whatever reason, the Nets and them had this like, hey, we're going to go do this together. We're going to this. And then I think as it's like, but that's the part of the thing. I'm not telling Kyrie to get a shot. But what I am saying is that if a team is going to give you keys to an organization, or they're going to give you this type of like, hey, we're going to go all in on you. And that, and that means that you have to make sacrifices now. Now, if you don't want to make those sacrifices, then they look at it, hey, like you're somebody that we can't go all in on. That's right. Simple business, right? If Kyrie owned the Brooklyn Nets, he would not give himself an extension. That's just the cold, hard facts. Like he wouldn't. He's a businessman. Kyrie's a businessman also. And so I think Kyrie's in a position now where he can like play one great year, be healthy, and he'll get all the money because he is a once in a generation talent. But, this is a year where he's got to go out and establish that he can be healthy, that he can, kind of, fit back into that groove again.
And a guy going into a big year, we'll talk a little Knicks here.
No, let's go.
Is RJ Barrett. And Alex and I get on this a lot because I like RJ Barrett. I think he's an ascending good player to the star level. Alex has him already at the star quality in the league. Go for it.
No, I want to hear from Alex.
Let Alex say it.
Well, we can talk. We can tell people what happened that preceded this. That me and you were texting about Donovan Mitchell trade, and I said I don't want to trade RJ Barrett for him, but I would trade literally everybody and everything besides him. Because I want to build up. I feel like we're hustling backwards by trading RJ Barrett. You and I texted literally all to the point where you called me.
I was like, listen, I can't text
call you
anymore.
And what's funny is that I was watching TV with my wife, and then I'm like, he's calling me. Like, holy shit. It was pretty funny. And then she's like, who? I'm like, Richard Jefferson. She knows nothing about sports, so don't get offended.
No,
it was funny. So go ahead.
My thing is this. RJ Barrett, you are hoping could become Donovan Mitchell, but you can get Donovan Mitchell. like that's what I'm saying. Like Donovan Mitchell, like really is. Look, at best, he's a top 20 player in the league. At worst, he's a top 30 player in this league, right? Like that's just that's it. Like at best, I think he's definitely one of the top 20 players, and he's still what 26 years old. Like he's a young prime. He's got all the playoff experience. He's got all the marketability. He's got all the smile, the sell New York. He's got all the things that say we can build around him. Right? Maybe not to a championship level, but far better than what we've had in our more recent past. Right? He's a guard. He's this. He's that. RJ Barrett you're hoping that he can become someone on that level. Right? And look, Knicks fans, I get it. RJ Barrett has done a great job, and I love RJ Barrett's game. But like, there's not a GM really on the planet that if you had to choose between the two of them, right, that you would say, oh, well, and again, you're going to give up more assets, but no one's going to come to New York to play currently right now with RJ Barrett. Currently, I'm not saying that this can't progress. People would go play with Donovan Mitchell. People would be like, oh, if he's there, okay, I'll go team up with that guy, right? And that, to me, I just think that's where I think Knicks fans, you get a bit delusional, respectfully, when you're like, well, we don't want to, we give up everything. You don't have anything. You don't have anything but RJ Barrett. And I know you got picks, and I know you got some other stuff, but you don't have it. Like RJ Barrett is the one thing that you would look at is an asset, like that teams might want. And I was also, told that I don't even know if Utah is going to want him, because Utah, if they're trying to get younger and want to try and do a full rebuild, they might not want a player that is going to want damn near a max contract next year. And RJ Barrett's good enough to win you games. So if that's not the direction that Utah's trying to go, maybe they don't want him, and maybe you get to keep him, but you're going to have to give up every damn pick you got. And you might have to trade some players to get some more picks, especially when you look at what they got for Rudy Gobert. So like all of your picks and some other picks might not be enough. So the Knicks, if you have a chance to get Donovan Mitchell, you get Donovan Mitchell.
And we sound alike when you say that, the last few words you just said. When you have a chance to get Donovan Mitchell, get Donovan Mitchell. Because I've been arguing with Knicks fans who like don't want to give up quickly, don't want to give up Toppin, don't want to give up Grimes. I'm like, are you crazy?
All y'all
like, are you
can
crazy?
go. All y'all can go. Like you saw Brandon Ingram was better than every one of those players. Every one of those players. Brandon Ingram left LA because Anthony Davis is that dude, right?
Yep.
And look, say what you want about Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is that dude. He's a 25-12 guy, right? Like he's that dude. Hasn't played great the last couple of years, but when you look back on that trade, and you had to give up Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, you had to give up picks, you had to give up Brandon Ingram, a future young all-star. Like, think about that. You don't want to give up Brandon Ingram, but if you can get Anthony Davis, you better. And Anthony Davis was 26 years old at the time. Like, that's the move you make. Like that's where the thing with New York. If you have an opportunity because you haven't gotten free agents, that's just the way. Not to the tier of which I think oftentimes you guys have believed or you have been sold that you guys should.
Thank you.
And so that's why I would yeah, that's what it is. I don't
the
like
argument though, real quick. Sorry to cut you off. The argument is that Knicks fans are going to kill me if I don't say this, that the Lakers had LeBron already. So it's a little different. You know what I'm saying? So like the Knicks don't have a LeBron and RJ is obviously not LeBron. So like the Lakers could clear the deck for Anthony Davis. You know, that's why I'm thinking keep RJ, and then you have Donovan Mitchell, then you have Brunson in place, you have Mitchell Robinson, and then maybe you got something there, you know.
You're right. If you can do that. And I'm not saying that you can't do that. You're right. If you can do that. Now I understand, the money starts getting, a little funny because RJ is going to want his money. But what I will say is that LeBron was the first domino. LeBron was the first domino in LA. And then you got to get the first domino.
Right.
And then Anthony Davis was the second domino, but you had all your pieces. LeBron went there first. Like, yes, you might be able to get rid of everybody to get Donovan Mitchell, and then you sign the high level player that also wants to go to New York in free agency. Whether if you got two star players, one, you gave up the farm, one, you sign in free agency. Doesn't matter the order in which you do it, as long as you get to it, right? But you got to get a player that you believe can be marketable, that like he's box office. Say whatever you want. Donovan Mitchell is an exciting player. Like he's going to put people, like he's going to sell
from
jerseys.
Westchester. Yeah.
Like there's going to be a vibe there. I'm telling you, if he gets there, there's an energy. And so that's something also that, like, when you look at strategy, understand that there's a sports and entertainment element, right? Like, hey, let's get this guy that's going to make Knicks fans excited. That's going to do, because if RJ Barrett goes and has, another solid season, he gets a little bit better, he gets this, it's not going to change. Donovan Mitchell has been leading teams to the postseason, albeit he's had very good teams around him, but leading teams to the postseason since his rookie year. Those type of players are special. Like those don't grow on trees.
Yeah, it's funny, and as much as I want to, poo-poo on the Knicks fan, I'll give them respect here of like how much passion they do have for their fans, for their players. Where like Emmanuel Quickly, Obi Toppin, the excitement when you look back at the Knicks, they won 36 games, and there's this inflation of how great they are. Meanwhile, there were 10 games under 500 and not even close to sniffing the playoffs. So for me, like the thought of Donovan Mitchell there at the Garden, like what that would become, and the annoying level on the side of, if we're getting this excited about what we think from Quentin Grimes and we saw in the summer league, like what's a legit bona fide all NBA player going to be like? And that's where we connect. I'm going, how is this when we're getting into minutia of, well, if we give up this other pick that's in 2028, I don't think I can do it. I'm going, are you going to think that on, January 7th when you're 11-15 and bored out of your mind?
Now, I understand. And that's the thing where I say, look, I get it. I get the apprehension, but I would rather live with taking that shot than not shooting that shot and missing. Right. Like that's the, like, look, this is one of those shots. Kevin Durant, I don't think wants to go to the Knicks. You saw his, but I'm just saying, again, say whatever you want, but like you saw like his, so if he was a free agent today, like this summer, would he have signed with the Knicks? No. So I'm just showing you again, like you have to build up to that top. Now, if he was with Donovan Mitchell and Donovan Mitchell was already there and RJ Barrett, now KD's looking at, man, I can go to New York. I can team up with D Mitch. They got some young players there. It looks a lot more enticing. Enticing. So that's
true.
where it's more of like you got to build it and they will come. I'll give you these couple instances. The Clippers, even after they traded away Blake and Chris and they built a young core, they built a young team, and they traded away and they used those picks and that stuff to bring in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Right. And now they're going to be a perennial team for 5 to 7 years if they can stay healthy, whatever. But they are one of the best teams. Lakers did one in free agency, gave away the farm to get AD. Right. The Brooklyn Nets built up from nothing. Sean Marks built up from nothing. They were able to go get in free agency KD, Kyrie, and then they gave away the farm for James Harden. There is a formula that you see that the great teams are following. Now, Golden State, Milwaukee, yeah. If you get one of those horses, that's a different situation.
Just draft Giannis, right? It's so simple.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Just draft Giannis, And so that's what I'm just saying. I think Knicks fans need to open up their kind of mindset a little bit more to the way that we're doing it and stop falling in love. The minute you see a player, don't fall in love with them. View him. Is he an asset or not? Is Grimes an asset? Would a team want him? Could we trade him in a pick to upgrade us come trade deadline? Like, is he an asset? That's what you need to view because you don't have any superstars. They have any superstars on your team.
I agree. It's also, I'm getting nervous because, like, I agree with you 100%. Besides the RJ Barrett point, we agree 100%. Like, you got to do what you can to get him. And I think that they can get him without giving up RJ Barrett because of the he wants to be paid, which he should be paid. I mean, if he's up for a contract and he deserves it, so my thoughts are, what do you think the Knicks, by not engaging with the Jazz right now and Danny Ainge, I know he's a stickler, but do you think that they're taking the risk of a surprise team sneaking in or multiple team trades, coming up?
Yes.
Yes,
100%, because Donovan Mitchell is that dude. And I understand Danny Ainge, but Danny Ainge is also doing the same thing that Kevin Durant, that Sean Marks is dealing with, where you have a top tier player. Teams are going to give their best offers and you're going to say it's not good enough. And you're going to wait and see, you're going to wait and see what, what's going to happen, this and that. So I get it. That's part of it. Paul George, he had a chance to go to LA. LA could have traded for him, right? When he was in Indiana, LA could have traded for him. And they didn't because they thought that he wanted to come to LA and they could have got him in free agency. And they're like, why are we going to give up assets to go get him when we can get him in free agency? And then I think they believed that they could get Anthony Davis in free agency and then give up assets. And then that's how they were going to build their big three. Well, he decided to go to Oklahoma City. Yeah. He decided to resign with Oklahoma City. And in one of his statements, he said, look, the Lakers had their chance to get me. And like, sometimes players want to be wanted. Don't tell me the price is too high for me. Right. But then you want me in free agency at the max contract, but you didn't want to give up that extra first round pick for me. Players take that shit personally. Right. Like, you don't want to give so it's like, oh no, this team believed in me. They're going to give up whatever they wanted to, whatever they had to get me. They believed in me. Players will invest in a franchise like that. That's like, hey bro, you're here. We're going to be committed to you. We're going to build something. But if you sit back and all of a sudden you lose and he ends up in India, I was not saying, let's say you lose and he ends up in Houston for whatever reason for a bunch of those young players. And Houston's like, hey, we'll start with him and add him to the number, 3 pick or whatever. But if you don't do that, guy might look at the free agency market and it's like, no, like you guys had it. You guys could have got me. If you would have given up one more second round pick, now you want me to come play for you. Players remember that.
All right. So before we get you out of here, just want to let you know, we had your teammate on Bad Weather Fans, Kerry Kittles once.
Skittles.
Yeah. And I asked him, I was like, was Richard Jefferson as annoying as he is on TV and on Twitter and whatever? And he said, yes, 100% annoying.
That's what's so funny. The NBA community always knows me as this guy. It's just the rest of the world is just now starting to figure out. So that's the only difference. That's why people always wonder, like, how does Richard get away with saying and being a little smart ass and doing all these things? It's because that's the only way people know me. So when they see it, they're like, oh, just ignore him. That's just Richard. That's just Richard.
It's like Kendrick Perkins. That's just how he is. He's just a loud guy.
Just ignore them. And, we try and make guys laugh and have a good time, and they're pretty forgiving.
Even if you're annoying, you are great. You're great to watch on TV.
I appreciate that as much as I cannot stand the Knicks fans and their overinflated view of their franchise.
And that's why we started this. We'll end this when I said, like, that one play where kid threw it off the backboard, Kenyon dunked it. He like shook his head. I was in the game because I had been a Net fan my whole life, and you're a rookie year. Kenyon's a couple years in, kids there establishing dominance, and I'm like, holy shit, you guys are really freaking good. So from the bottom of my heart, I'll fanboy a little bit. Thank you, because that was enjoyable.
Thank you. It was. I thoroughly, now that you guys know my personality, a little smart ass, everybody knows my personality. I thoroughly enjoyed and took great pleasure in representing the second team in town. I truly did, because it was just like, oh, we are going to obliterate you guys, and it's just going to make it that much more sweet. Right. So I enjoyed representing my Jersey people, being out on Route 3 and fucking Secaucus, East Rutherford, like hanging out. I loved it.
All 7,000 of us say thank you.
Oh, I knew everybody by name. They didn't even have to wear name tags anymore. It was great.
All right, RJ. Thanks, man.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, RJ, for coming on Bad Weather Fans, and a lot of RJ questions about RJ Barrett. A lot of RJ-ness there. I thought what he said about Barrett was spot on. And I like how, it's funny because I've seen you guys go back and forth on Twitter. It's sometimes a little more difficult to understand, but, in a podcast format with a conversation, you get it. And I'm with him on that. That's what the part I just like could never understand. When people are like freaking out. I mean, like, you could get a superstar on your roster. And what he said too about RJ, like the Jazz not wanting RJ, you and I talked about that. Not wanting.
It's not because I hate him. It's not because he's a bad
doesn't
player.
fit in their plans right now too.
Yeah. Well, I just will disagree with him about the RJ Barrett thing, but we're on the money about everything else, like we were saying. With trade all the players, trade all the picks, just get him on the team, and let's see what happens from there. Because he's right. Like I pushed back on the Lakers point that, well, they already had LeBron. He's like, yeah, well, you got to get a superstar either way. Right. And he's right. And either way, it's going to happen. So whatever. It's nice to talk, basketball with a former NBA champion. It's always nice, even if he is Richard Jefferson.
Oh, I mean, I was geeking out at the end. I mean, I could have done like 3 hours on just like, so RJ, let me find out in the 2002 NBA playoffs in game 4 versus I could have.
He'll probably break it all down for you too.
I know.
Yeah.
I would have bored the hell out of the Knicks fans, but like, I could have done. And that's why when we got to the end, it was,
I wish we had more time. Yeah.
I love the fact that he embraced the idea of being the second team. And I, as a Net fan, embraced it too. And that's what made it even more fun. And, he lived it. I mean, this is his life as a player, but as a fan seeing it, I could totally understand and relate to the idea of like, we're going to go into the Mecca. Nobody knows that this team is here. We're going to hear all the cliche things. Could you imagine if this was at the Garden, how cool this would be? Oh, this would be the biggest show on earth. Well, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And let's go in, and it wasn't. Let's go into the Garden and beat the shit out of the Knicks. And you could see the pure joy in his face talking about it.
Yeah, his face lit up.
And that made me very happy to hear. All 7,000 of us.
Yeah, and when we talked about it on episode 6, the first time we had Richard Jefferson on this podcast, Bad Weather Fans, he mentioned how he loved going into the Garden and beating them, and then going out to the clubs in the city. And then he said, getting with their women and things like that. And like after beating them, you know what I mean? Like, this is where
enjoying the city, enjoying New York. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So New York City.
Yeah. And I get that. I get that as especially back then when they were in New Jersey, where they really weren't even on the radar in New York. Like, I tell this story all the time. I grew up in Long Island. I didn't know any Nets fans existed, because it's the 90s and we're in New York. Like, the Knicks are the kings. It's either you're the Knicks fan or a Bulls fan back then. There was nothing else. You know what I mean? Maybe Magic or Sixers, as when Iverson came and Shaq or whatever. But it was that there was no Nets. Yeah, exactly. Front runners. But now it's like it's a little more even, but whatever. But it's not even, but it's getting closer. And I felt him when he said that, because especially with the Mets sweeping the Yankees recently, I felt that like excitement, and, Yankees fans trying to like poo it like it didn't mean anything, when it really did. If they won, they would have trashed us, but whatever. That's besides the point.
Well, that's just, there's coping mechanisms when you lose.
Right.
And I've realized I have my own coping mechanisms, which are now at this point just crying.
Dismissing. Yeah, crying.
But no, and that's something you do like, it's a regular, I'll give you 1 minute on the Yankees because it feels good to shit on them too. oh, it's just a game here in early August. You know,
Spring
we
training
gotta,
game, right? Yeah.
whatever. Okay. Meanwhile, the team's now falling apart. The Astros have caught up and they look like dog shit. So yeah, that might be true in that microcosm of that moment, but in the big picture scale, one team's descending, one team's ascending. And how good do you feel about your team right now? So you can say like, it's just a game here or there, and then get it in a baseball season. There's so many that happens, but look at now how the teams are going. You feeling like that now? Like, we'll wait and see what happens. No, of course not. You're in the moment. You're watching the games. You're having fun.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if you trade Montgomery and then Montgomery beats you, and then you would love to have those 2 games back against the Mets, because then that would help. Especially it's a big test, because the Mets are one of the best teams in the National League.
Sure.
So you're one of the best teams in the American League. It's a big test anyway. So it was nice to have him on. It was nice to talk about Knicks and Nets and talk about the other topics from another angle, from his perspective as a former NBA champion and NBA player. And it's also nice to not talk about like what everybody's been talking about this week about the amateur game when the Knicks led the pro-am game where Randall and Brunson and Obi lost. And, you know, it's funny when Knicks fans at Summer League, Grimes is dominating and they're getting on the top of the world for that. And I'm like, this means nothing. And then they lose in the amateur game to the amateurs. Like, oh, these games mean nothing. I'm like, yeah, okay, man. I see how you guys play this game, but it has like, Hannah, my wife, her coworker, Tomas is in Seattle, and he's trashing the Knicks too, because it's like they're seeing this on like ESPN or Bleacher Report or something like that. It's like, yeah, the Knicks lost by double digits to a bunch of amateurs, and some dude nobody knows dropped 40 on Julius Randle. It's just like, it's like he's probably a little upset being in Seattle that we have more pro basketball teams in New York than he has the same amount of pro basketball teams that he has pro sports teams, big major sports teams. But that's another story, but in general, people are, it's a way to trash the Knicks. And honestly, it's not that far off. I mean, I wouldn't trash them for it, but it's like, how do you lose? I mean, I didn't watch it, I know they're broadcast on Knicks Fan TV, but like I didn't see it because I don't care. But it's not a big deal. It wasn't a big deal in Summer League. This is not a big deal.
No,
so whatever.
No, it's not. It's so
but
dumb.
I get people making fun of it. Like I get it both sides. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Is it a little embarrassing in the fact? Yeah. Does it matter? No, it means nothing. The Knicks, it doesn't matter. It's about the regular season. Just like the fucking, like you said, the Summer League didn't matter. It's irrelevant. Oh,
yeah. Richard Jefferson's ref the Summer League game. Like we didn't bring that up. We didn't have the time.
But it's just so silly. And I mean, I've said this before. I'll say it again. If you're going to walk around and puff your chest out like you're the big bag Knicks, deal with the fact that people are going to be like, fuck off when dumb stuff happens. That's just part of the game. You can't have both. If you're going to be, we're the Knicks, there's nothing like it, we're the best fan base. Well, you know what? That means people will be coming after you. So deal with it. Just suck it up. I've weirdly like accepted that with the Nets. They are trashed all the time. And I hear opinions, and some of them I'm just like, well, that's ridiculous. But I'm not like angry. I'm not like, oh, this is not fair. It's like, no, this is what happens when you get superstars and you're a disaster. Like they're a disaster.
Things go sideways.
They deserve all of it. Now you want to get into the minutia of who's to blame, who's not to blame. Here's who's to blame, all of them. Because it's all a mess.
Egos.
Everybody had a part in making this a disaster. Man, like that's it. That's just part of it now. And I said, Net fans, get ready for 3 years from now when no one cares about them again, and we can be irrelevant, right?
Yeah. There you go. If you have the draft picks to even get back on, you know what I mean? Like their whole theme song now, it went from "Let It Burn" to that ego song with Kanye West. I got a big ego. Every single person just got their egos involved, and from executives to owners to players to coaches, everybody.
Yeah, they blew it,
and I love it. I love every second of it.
You should.
I'm enjoying it.
You should embrace it. I mean, you should. Yeah. You should. Why shouldn't you? Yeah, this is a big moment. I mean, not a big moment, but you hate the Nets, and they're imploding right before your eyes.
Because the fans, it's fans and networks and everybody got at the Knicks and Knicks fans, and we're allowed to laugh back, even though we're not as good as we thought we'd be at this point. We're allowed to laugh back, and as Nets fans, you got to take the L. You can't twist it into something else. You can't twist it into something that's so far gone that doesn't make any sense. Like, just be like, yeah, we screwed up. We stink now. It didn't work. Don't make it something else. Don't make it about something that has nothing to do with basketball. No, that's all.
No doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
at this point, when the deal happens and Durant's gone, we'll see what happens with Kyrie Irving. They're not going. I mean, they're going to have a semi-okay roster. They're not going to be anywhere near a championship team.
No.
I mean, they're not going to be.
They're going to be what the Knicks were last year. Exactly. Yeah. What you would think.
Well, I don't think. We got to see what happens because I can't.
We got to
make
see what happens. Right.
Like,
We can't.
if they get Jaylen Brown and Kyrie stays, and you've got Ben Simmons, now you would say like, I think that could work. I mean, it could. That could be enough to win games.
Mhm.
Who knows? There's a lot of ifs there. A lot of ifs.
It
But
is.
I mean, I can't then hear. I guess my point is I can't hear Knick fans saying how excited they are if it's Jalen Brunson and how much better they are with Obi Toppin, and then at the same time be like, well, this Ben Simmons is an All NBA player.
Right.
Again,
Right.
He's got to play, but he's an All NBA player.
Just
Jalen
hasn't
Brown
played
is
in
an
2 years. Yeah.
If it's Jalen Brown, he is a star player. Like he's one of those guys that is an all-star.
He
sometimes.
might be a superstar. He might be a super. They were just in the
Right.
finals.
And
You
if
know, you
Kyrie,
can put him up there. Yeah.
again, it's a lot of ifs. So a lot of
Right.
things could go wrong. Don't get me. Don't. I'm not going to tease everybody like, oh, this is it.
Right.
But there's still pieces there and some
Mhm.
possible potential. But it's not the same. That's why
yeah.
like this is fucking driving me crazy. And I said before, now you got to embrace it. But I'll say when I think there's bad takes, I can't understand for the life of me people that are like, the Nets are better off without Kevin Durant and just to move on. I don't know how you could say, or people like they're better to have Sean Marks than Kevin Durant. If Kevin Durant's on the roster, they have a chance to win a title. If he is not, they don't. And to me, you can give me all the semantics, all the little details, all the little this, all the that. Like you could give me 3 hours of content of why I'm wrong or why it's a better decision. But you cannot dispute the idea that if Durant's there as opposed to not there, their title odds dramatically dip. And to
Right.
me, that's the end of the conversation.
It's true. That's true. I mean, I have nothing else to say. I
Like-
mean, but it's not like we said to Richard Jefferson. He agreed. I think you just one of those like life is not on paper. It's not a video game. You know what I'm saying? These are people. And it is what it is. We're repeating ourselves at this point. So anyway, it was fun. It was great talking to him. I had a good time, and hopefully we'll have him on again at some point.
I had one more Nick thing that bothered me, but I can save it for another time.
Yeah, let's save it.
Real quick, I want to get it out of my system. It's been grinding my gears.
Do it.
People that are like, if this was James Dolan, do you know how much shit he would get? And the answer is, yeah, a lot, and it would be deserved. But
Yeah.
Joe Tsai's earning his way to that level. But yeah,
But
both
sign me
would
up for
be
these
true.
problems, man. Get me these guys, and let's see what happens.
Ugh, I would like
Get me
if that
Donovan
was-
Mitchell, and let's see what the fuck happens. That's what I want to know. I want to
right.
see what happens. Jesus.
Yeah, we'll
Anyway.
all right. We'll get there. Okay, this has been Bad Weather Fans, episode 129 with Richard Jefferson, who joined us on the podcast. If you're listening on Apple, go ahead and download all platforms. Give us a download. If you're watching on YouTube, take a shot of us, tweet it out where you're watching. We'd love to see that, and subscribe on YouTube at Mike Delivers Pod, at Knicks Central. Always a fun follow on Twitter is Alex. If you're into Nick content, he's the guy for you.
Some might disagree. That's okay. I
You
don't
genuinely made me laugh there.
And anyway, yeah,
You
no,
genuinely-
thanks for listening. It was a
Yeah,
fun
man.
episode and more great guests to come. So follow us and subscribe on YouTube, and all podcast apps download. Let's go.
This has been Bad Weather Fans, episode 129. We'll see y'all later.